Hey, good morning, everyone. It's 10 o'clock East Coast time and the first cup of coffee time out there on the West Coast. It's Carm Capriato with Hunt Demarest. Good to see you again. It was, I think, a week ago you and I hung out and we
Mhm.
we were talking about what we knew so far about the stimulus package. A lot has changed since then. Hunt, thank you for coming back and helping everyone in the automotive aftermarket. We're all small businesses. We are such an important part of the automotive aftermarket in the industry to figure out how we're going to navigate. Maybe that's the right word through all the issues that we have. You're the expert. You've done the research, and oh, by the way, let me just say this to the industry: if you've got a CPA like Hunt working for you, great. I mean, I think they are a great resource. Understand that Par Mellis and Associates company, they have over 500 clients that are shop owners. So where Hunt's heart's coming from is exactly what our industry needs to hear, and I know he'll steer us right. I'm not an expert. Hunt, you're more of an expert than I, so please be aware, do your own research, get your own support, find a banker that's willing to help you get through this thing. And I know that we're all going to come out the other side of COVID-19 pandemic smarter, better, stronger than ever. So start us off, take us through.
Yeah, thanks for having me on here, Carm. Like you said, really, this is the time where you need to rely on the professionals that you have. Rely on your accountant, rely on your lawyer, rely on your banker, because without these relationships, we're just not going to be able to implement some of these new programs that are coming out. There's a lot of uncertainty going on, and you really just need to reach out to these professionals and lean on to say, hey, what do we need to do here? How can I utilize this? How can this help my business? And what can we do to get through this? Because just like you said, Carm, everyone's going to get through this if done correctly. And that's really our entire end game here is what do we need to do to get to the end of this and to come out the other side and still be in operations and still have our team in place. Really, so I mean, what we're going to kind of get into today is the new CARES Act, the big stimulus bill that I think last time I was on here, I alluded to. And when we were on that, when I came on here, we were under the impression that this was going to come out within hours or even days. Unfortunately for us, it was stuck in Congress for a while, and it ended up not getting passed until last Friday. But the positive thing here is that it did get passed, and there was a lot of things in here that's going to, help all Americans, and more importantly, help small businesses and shops as well. So I'm going to start off with kind of, some of the big items that came out for the personal side of things. One of the biggest ones that a lot of people are talking about right now is the stimulus checks to individuals. So if you're a single person and you make less than $75,000, you're going to get a $1,200 stimulus check. If you have a kid, that's going to be an extra $500. If you're married, you can make up to $150,000 and you're going to get $2,400. Again, if you have children, it's going to be another $500 on top of that. Now, once you get over $100,000 personally or over about $200,000 as a couple, this money is going to start to phase out. They are going to take whatever tax return, the most recent one they have on file. So if you haven't filed 2019 yet, they're going to take a look at your 2018 taxes. And the way that they're going to give this money out is they're going to deposit it into the account that they have last on record for your direct deposit. If you have a direct deposit account set up on their tax return, perfect. If you don't, they're going to mail you a check. Obviously, we know if they're going to mail the check, it's going to take a little bit longer than direct deposit, but we're still going to be able to get this money. For those of you that might be in a situation where I'm saying, hey, I made too much money in 2019, but in 2020, I'm projected to make less money. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be the case for a lot of shops that, this year is not going to be as good as last year. If that is the case, and once we finish 2020, if you are actually under that threshold, there's going to be a credit for you on next year's taxes to get some of this money. Not going to be immediate help right now, right? But if, we'll take any money that the government's going to give out to
It's
us.
almost like they've thought of everything.
I think they like to think that.
But just think of the logistics and the check boxes that you have to worry about. Oh my God, there's a lot of breakage there, I think.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that, I keep on stressing to people because there's a lot of individual situations. Hey, Hunt, what if I have this situation, right? I didn't have payroll part-time or I had some seasonal or, any of these kind of smaller scenarios. Really, the situation on those is we just have to see. right? Like you said, the government likes to try and cover all of their bases, but there's just not enough paper in the world to kind of cover all of these. And so I think what we're going to be looking for out of, some of these more unique situations is, like I said, this money is, for the major programs is going to be coming from your bank. I'm going to be leaning on my banker to say, hey, how do you interpret this? How are we going to be able to get through this application? How are you going to be able to get funded as much as possible?
Hunt, is it also true that they changed and made the SBA loan application easier?
They did. And so last time we were on here, I believe that the loan application was still live on their internet-based version. And then shortly after that aired, it actually completely crashed the website, and they turned around and they have it now set up for, you can now fill it back out electronically. And they condensed it as well.
I have a link on my homepage. It's highlighted in yellow on my homepage on getting to that application. So you may want to check it out. And I've got a lot of links, not only to all the episodes that we've done, but a lot of the government links. Not saying that we're experts, but we want to put people in the right pews in the right church. Okay.
Exactly. So as far as a couple other big things that came out on a personal level, they're expanding unemployment benefits. So the max unemployment benefits are going to go up by $600 for every state. So if you're in Maryland right now, rough numbers, you get about $500 max on unemployment. With this new added benefits, you would be entitled to up to $1,100 in unemployment benefits. So, for the small business owners, it might be something if you are looking at deferring some payroll, if you are looking at putting on someone on unemployment, that might kind of lessen the blow for them, because obviously $500 a week max unemployment is going to be drastically less than most of your team is probably making right now. However, with the new extra $600, that is going to obviously increase that a good bit and help them out. One of the questions that's come up on the unemployment that it's kind of seems to be a lot of concern of shop owners right now is, are my unemployment rates going to increase because of all this added unemployment that's going on to it? As of right now, we have zero guidance on this from the state. It's my estimate here, it's my guess that what the state is going to do is they're going to look at this period that we're going through now a bit differently. I would not be surprised if most states took the stance that they're not going to adjust your unemployment rates for any claims during this period. If they were to turn around and increase unemployment rates for businesses for this period, it would just be exponential, the amount of increases that they would see.
There's too much empathy going on out there from all government agencies that I think they would do that, and you're right, and I think we're going to see that.
You would have to hope so.
Couldn't afford that. This is a window. This isn't long term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the next big item that we have on the personal side of things is they're relaxing some of the rules on taking money out of a retirement account. And so if you take out money of a retirement account last year and you're not at full retirement age, you would pay a penalty and also the associated taxes on whatever you take out. What they've done is they've relaxed those rules so you can avoid the penalty. And if you pay that money back within the next 3 years, you don't have to pay back any sort of penalties or taxes on that. So, that's kind of what I would say is a last ditch effort for a shop owner. If you're looking to get cash, it's an option that's out there. Reach out to your financial advisor, see how much money is still in there, because obviously it's going to be less because of, the market crash, and just see what options you have. I'm not going to necessarily advocate anyone to immediately take this out, but I want to weigh all my options and see what kind of money I can get from where and what my options are.
You said financial advisor. Are you including the banker? Are you including someone who would manage any of your cash assets? You're including your accountant and all of that?
Yeah, and so, if you have a 401k, you have a financial advisor, whether you've ever talked to them or not. If you're using it from one of these bigger firms, a John Hancock or a Vanguard or something like that, all of them have resources for you to call. You've maybe never utilized that resource. This is just like I said before, now's the time to lean on the professionals, leverage those resources, ask them what your options are, ask them what you can do to try and maximize, whatever benefit we can get right now.
Cool. Hey, Hunt, there's a question here from Daniel Costa. To determine what would you receive, would that include W-2s and profit gains from your biz?
Perfect. So that is the end of what I have on the personal side. So let's move right into the business side, and this kind of segues to that. So the big program that came out from the new stimulus package is something called the Payroll Protection Program. What the Payroll Protection Program is, it's a loan. The loan is going to be done through individual banks, and it's going to be backed by the SBA. The way that they're going to figure out the amount of money that you're eligible for this loan is they're going to take your wages over the last year. They're going to figure out your average monthly wage, and they're going to multiply that times 250%. And so to answer your question there, Daniel, they're going to be taking just your W-2 wages. They're not going to be taking any of your profits or distributions or draws. What they're going to essentially do is they're going to take whatever you have on your payroll summary over that last time period and try and figure out what your average monthly payroll is, and then give you have 2.5 times that.
I got it. It has nothing to do with anything off structure but payroll.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
So once, like I said before, these loans are going to be a little bit different than the SBA disaster relief loans. As you were talking about before, the SBA disaster relief loans, we are done directly through the SBA, either on the SBA's website or submitting the application to the SBA. This new payroll protection program, or the PPP loans, is going to be done through your local bank. There is not official guidance out there yet from the banks. The SBA is still developing this program, but I've already talked to a number of shops that have already been in talks with their bank to get the process started.
This is a wonderful thing. Let's stop for one moment and think about the payroll protection program, the PPP. We've got people on layoff. Some of us do. And there's a lot of people that are hiring even temporary workers. And some of them, they may go from temp to full time. And they may not be the kind of money that they were making if they were in your shop. But you may have a C-Tech who you had to lay off. The whole idea of PPP is to bring those people in.
Exactly.
And you're getting the cash. Is it a grant? Is it a grant, Hunt?
And so they call it a loan, but it's a forgivable loan. And so what the stipulations are here is, let's say that we get funded and we get $100,000 for our business. That was what they calculated as 2.5 times our monthly payroll. Whatever we pay out in the form of payroll, rent, utilities, payroll benefits like health insurance and 401k, and qualifying interest payments on debt will be considered forgiven. And so if you add up all those items that you pay over on the 8 weeks following the fund date, if that adds up to more than what you were given from in a form of the loan, then you do not owe the government back any of that money. And it essentially, yes, does turn into a grant.
I think you may have just semi-answered Scott Hager's question. I'm curious what type of situations are required to make sure that you get forgiveness and don't have to repay the loan afterwards.
And so, Scott, and so what type of situations make sure that we get forgiveness, and how long do you have to spend the money? So right now, all of it is 8 weeks after you get funded. And so the 8 weeks after you get funded is where they're going to look and see what your qualifying expenses are. What if you lose employees during that time? What if someone gets sick and you have to close? So as of right now, like you said, Carm, their objective here is for you to hire back your employees. And so there's incentives in there to keep or maintain the same amount of payroll that you had before. Scott brings up a good point, though. Our business is going to be penalized if you can't physically bring someone back, or if one of your team gets sick, or if your entire team gets sick and you have to close down. These are one of these situations that I'd be looking at my bank to see what's going to come out later as far as the recertification process. There has to be concessions in place for this, because it's going to be, unfortunately, probably a common scenario that a lot of businesses could possibly face.
You're so right. I mean, we cannot figure out all the situations that will happen. So I think it's buyer beware. Be very, very careful what you do. In my mind, PPP is all about trying to get yourself back up to 100% employment inside of your small business. And remember, we're lucky to be open as a necessary industry. But think of all the small shops. Gift shop is an example. Who's going to still come into that shop and buy anything during this time when you can't leave your home?
Yeah.
When you're under a quarantine, can they afford to bring those people back? Well, this is how the gainful employment continues.
Yeah, I believe what their intention is on this is, obviously they're expanding unemployment for people that don't have a job. But the payroll protection program is to entice businesses to bring these people back into the workforce. Because just like we've always said, this is going to lift. We're going to get through this and the dust is going to settle. The government's intent is we want to make sure that our businesses are staying in operation. So when this does lift, we can go back to some semblance of a normal life. If everyone was unemployed and this starts to lift, there's going to be a major delay of getting industries and business back up to speed. Their hope is that businesses continue in operations, continue paying their employees, continue supporting the community in the meantime, and the
Yeah.
government's willing to give money to help that.
I had a crazy thought last night.
Mhm.
Me and the wife were talking, and I said, if you thought we didn't have anything on the shelves just a week before this all hit, wait till wait till it's lifted. There will
Mhm.
be nothing left on the shelf because of all the pent up work. And in fact, just think about our own industry and the pent up work that's necessary. Paula Marquardt, is
Mhm.
it best to use unemployment or is it best to use PPP?
And so, unemployment, you are going to have the government essentially pick up the bill for your technician or your service advisor or your admin. And so, in the interim between now and getting the PPP money, the unemployment is definitely an option that I would look at if you really just don't have the work for your team. My big concern on putting someone on unemployment, though, is there a possibility that I'm going to lose that team member? And when I need them to come back, are they going to be available? And so that's something I would think about in the meantime. When we get the PPP money, every single shop should go out and apply for the PPP. It's free money from the government. If you then turn around and you use that money to pay your employees, you're essentially using free money to pay for your employees because it's all going to be forgiven. It's really a win-win solution for you. At the same flip side, you're essentially getting the government to pay your employees to be there. And so hopefully in the back end, we're also still picking up work and we're also still being productive and driving profits through the business as
Yeah,
well.
they're going off unemployment to come in to get paid by you.
Yeah, exactly.
Neil, so even if I filled out the original SBA disaster recovery loan before it was taken down, should I also reach out to my bank as well?
Thanks for that question, Neil. I paid Neil to get that question because that's the next segue that I'm going in here. So this was one of the big concerns that came out when the stimulus package or the PPP was still kind of in its infant stages. It was still being debated. There was some talk out there that if you got these SBA disaster relief loans or the immediate disaster relief grants, that you would be disqualified from getting the PPP. That is not the case now. If you've applied for the disaster relief loan, you're not disqualified from getting the PPP. But what it could do is they could choose to see that as the same benefit and lower your PPP loan amount by that. And so a good example is, we've been asked a lot about if you apply now for the SBA disaster relief, you're eligible to get a $10,000 immediate grant. What's going to happen is, you can't double dip on it. So then when we turn around here in a couple weeks and hopefully get funded for the PPP loan, whatever amount that you get from the PPP would be reduced by the 10,000 that you've already received. As far as the actual SBA disaster loan, I would check with my bank to see what the stipulations are about that. From the bankers that I've talked to, the SBA disaster loans, it's just they've been completely overwhelmed by the amount of applications. So I'd have to imagine that those disaster loans, if they are going to fund, if you're approved, are going to come after the PPP loans anyways.
Wonderful. Let's do one more here. What if your rent is paid to you by your LLC?
Yeah, and so that's one thing that we're going to look for some guidance on them for. As of right now, qualifying rent payments are included in qualified expenses that go against the forgiveness amount. But Scott, you bring up a good point. A lot of our shop owners rent from themselves. Now, it's still a valid expense, right? Because we're still paying for the use of the property. We have, either you own the property personally or through a separate LLC. So all that's 100% legitimate. The biggest thing that I'm looking for is guidance on how they possibly look into how much you're paying yourself in rent. Because I know that there's shop owners right now whose wheels are turning of saying, well, if rent to myself is a qualifying expense, then I'll just turn around when I get this money and I'll just increase my rent to myself. I'm putting money in my pocket. I'm also lowering down my, loan amount that I have to pay back. What I think that we're going to see them say is that it has to be fair and reasonable, and it probably has to be in line with what you've been paying yourself over the last year.
Just be careful.
Just be careful. I
Just
think that this
be
is,
careful.
yeah, I think this is going to be a program that there's obviously, as we've already talked about, there's definitely areas that are subject to abuse here. Most of this stuff is going to be done on more or less the honor system of you certifying under perjury that you've completed it. Where there's a will, there's a way for anyone that wants to do this.
Got it. Hey, Ryan closes, does a business have to be down in revenue by a certain percent in order to qualify for the PPP? Is there a system in place to make sure a business that is not suffering still takes the free PPP money?
So as of right now, there is no stipulations that you have to, already be hurting from from what we're going through right now. There's some verbiage in the bill that says you've either already been impacted by this or there's uncertainty in the future that you could be impacted by this. There's not a single business out there that doesn't have at least the uncertainty of what's going to happen. Just as you probably talked to a lot of shop owners, I have as well, that a lot of them have said, hey, business was running 100% until Thursday or until Friday. And then that one day, they just saw a majority of their business drop off. Or if you're in a state where there was no really, statewide regulations, and then all of a sudden they roll out those regulations, we just don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. And that's not going to affect you getting the PPP loans.
Got it. You don't think that there's going to be a rolling changes coming to this, like once a week when they figure out what there may be some loopholes?
I think that there'll be tweaks and guidelines on this. I can't see them. I can't see them penalizing essential service industries for the fact that they're still in operation. Essentially, you're saying that you're an essential service, so you need to be open. I can't see them turn around and saying, since you are able to be open, we're not going to give you any money for this. What they would see is immediate backlash, and then obviously you're not helping out the essential service industries, and now you're running the risk of the essential services not being available for the community.
Got it. Vinny Lucido, if you have already laid off staff, can they be rehired with the PPP grant?
Yes, you can, and that is the intention. Just like you were talking about, Carm, with the PPP, it is to either maintain your workforce or bring people back into your workforce. I have a number of shops that have planned to put some of their lower end team on unemployment, and then when the PPP money hits, bring them back into the shop.
Thank you for that. Hey, Paul Marquardt asked about Explain FMLA. We did that last week. So, Paul, go to my website, look on the homepage, look for Hunt's Carmcast from last week, and we explain it all there. Anyone who's watching us on Facebook, of course, this thing will continue to live on Facebook. We'll put this particular Carmcast up on my Carmcast page, and please share it with all your friends in the industry. Hunt did a very similar show like this yesterday, got a heck of a lot of views, and we thank you for coming here today and giving us some more in depth. Where do we go from here now, Hunt?
Yeah, I mean, I just saw a question come through on this. All seems overwhelming. How do I get help navigating these programs? Jeff, reach out to your accountant, reach out to your banker. This is where I'm leaning on them for their expertise. The PPP program is a bit overwhelming when you look at it just because it's new. For most of the information that I'm seeing coming from banks, it's fairly straightforward information that most any educated shop owner should be able to get with little to no trouble. If you do have trouble, that's why I said reach out to your professional, reach out to your accountant and say, hey, they're asking me for X, Y, and Z. Can you make sure that I have the right things, or can you get these items for me? Same thing with some of the questions that came up of, hey, what happens in this certain situation? Because my business still qualifies. Should I be doing this? Reach out to the bankers. The bankers are the ones that are getting the direct updates from the SBA on who qualifies, what the loopholes is, and what to look out for.
On my homepage, I put a download link right here to the Small Business Owner's Guide. Hunt, I think you may have sent this to me.
Yep.
I downloaded it. I put it up on my page. You can download this report. It's an 11-page FAQ on PPP, EIDL, EEIG, all these cool new acronyms that we're going to have to learn over these next few weeks. And look at that. So, I always say, learn as much as you possibly can on what it is you are about ready to embark on, but you don't have to become the expert, which is why you need to go to your CPA, your banker, and your financial advisor. And to me, that's the best thing. Hey, it exists. It's out there. What can we do with it, for it? How can we help our business? Anything else, Hunt, that we need to know at this moment?
I think that about covers it.
Well, I so appreciate it. I don't see any more questions coming through on Facebook, and again, we're not here to to be the Wizard of Oz here for this entire program, as it is fluid and dynamic and changing. So your time, I know, is so valuable. You're working so hard on this. Thanks, Hunt Demarest, CPA from Parmelis and Associates, for coming on and giving us a little bit of an update on the CARE Act, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act. How do they figure these acronyms out so perfectly? It's just amazing how that works, the CARE Act. So Hunt Demarest and all the people that follow the podcast, thanks so much for hanging out with us today. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks for having me, Carm.